We're going to open up this, welcome to the Monday, January 13th, 2025 special session meeting of the Madison County School Board. We're going to jump right on in here. We got one item on the agenda. That's the invitation to bid RFP for baseball and softball complex, agriculture building, field house, weight room, and greenhouse. Have a motion to approve this agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Have a motion to approve by Ms. Knight. Have a second by Ms. Hagan. All approve. 5-0. All right.
At this time, we will have Mr. Will Rutherford make a presentation of this advertisement, and if you have any questions, you feel free to ask him.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So, first I want to say, sorry you had to come out this morning, it raining, nasty. So a couple things. So put an ad together, so the goal is to try to get everything into high schools peripheral bid and put out. So as a general kind of overall requesting the board to approve for invitation to bid, okay? Not approving any scope or doing the work. Y'all can say, no, we're not doing it later, or we're doing all of it later. That's y'all's choice. So this is just for me to go to bid and advertise to bid it. So there's FEMA, there's insurance, there's all kinds of these parties and people involved. So checking the boxes so that you get reimbursement for some of those funds, this today has to happen. It's what we're here for. So let's first start talking about a couple of things that walk through time frames. So some time ago, Tim had called and said, hey, we need to go start this. And then Helene came, and then we got shut down because FEMA would have rejected it prior to some dates being checked off and things done. So then I kind of on my own did my own kind of thing without permission to get ahead of drawings, to get ahead of this date coming. Because like it or not, I'm sure that all of you all have gotten some phone calls from parents that want to play baseball and softball and yada, yada, yada. And I get it. I understand that. So for me to get ahead of that, drawings are done, okay, for replacements of those. Again, you can choose to not do it or do it. That's your choice. The folks you have working for you are working on those insurance values, okay, of what those values would be paid to replace. So let's start with baseball. Baseball has a visitor's dugout that the roof is gone. It's not a major issue. It's just, I don't know, 40 or 50 2x6s and some sheathing and a roof back on it. The batting cage is gone. It's temporaried in, so there's a sheathing and metal that will go back on that. There's 2 foul poles that's bent over bad. There's some fences that got blowed back that were replaced after. I did. So maybe there's 30 feet of section of that. Not a big deal. Post them up and put them back. The pole's not bent, just wind pressures. Put them over in soft dirt. Then the netting is all completely ripped on the top. There's 4 Schedule 80 18-foot 4-inch pipe poles that's got to be pulled and replaced. Can't be bent back, cut loose, welded. Schedule 80 poles, 3/8 half-inch thick wall. It's stout, and how it bent it over, I don't know. Lot of pressure. So those 4 poles, that netting, the batting cage, roof top, and the visitors dugout. Those things, and a few pieces of chain links. Those things, with the exception of a light ballast that's in a different conversation because you have Musco lights, okay? So Musco lights, and you have an old ballasted light. So there's a box that dug out, come loose, tore down, took it off the pole. It's there. So there's some quotations with Musco for remediation. It's there. There's ballast box there and there's a pole on softball. That's different than what I'm doing here. We got that kind of sitting out there waiting just because of time frame. So all that being said, for baseball side, and there's some fences and stuff. So I go to bid. I have a mandatory pre-bid on February 4th. I pull bids on the 24th. They'll come in to here at 2 o'clock. So then that's 28 days, which is what you got to maintain. So inside of that bidding cycle, I will hit the papers Wednesday, just as fast as I can. And then, quite honestly, I'm going to try to do all this work in 2 weeks, or have it done in 2 weeks, okay? To get you back in there. So spring break in March. I think everybody's kind of worked out of playing on the road until that point. And that's the goal. I put some feelers out to some people because a couple of things here that I don't like. It's just what it is. I don't like having to do P&P bonds on this kind of work, okay? Performance and payment bonds. But statutorily, we have to do that because of the value of some of that. But that limits the possibilities of who will do it because it's not going to be fun work. But I've already gotten 2 or 3 I know that will participate. So hopefully that's going to work out. That's the reason for a mandatory pre-bid conference on February 4th. So I'll know who's serious and who's not. And I can force that hand on that date. That gives me time to react because that March date's still coming no matter what happens. So that's baseball. Softball's in the same kind of place. Visitors dugout, block work there, and everything's gone on that one, and a pole's gone. A few little pieces of trim work and things there and fence stuff, but for the most part, that's softball. Talk about agricultural complex. So ag has four barns, okay, if you will. Let's talk about one's a tractor barn. It's blocked with the roof panels off of it. We can put roof panels back on it, not a problem. Pretty easy. It stay like it is. The other 3 at the bottom are 1960s, 70s, not really because the school was built in the 80s, but they're old, okay? Super old. FEMA and insurance will pay a little bit of money to replace those. And you won't have nothing better than what it is right now as it's tore up, in my opinion. So we've had some discussion with third-party folks that work for y'all. I talked to, Dr. Pickles had a conversation a week ago, probably, week and a half ago maybe, about how we might do this. And anyways, we've gotten to a place where we think that insurance will pay all that together. So I'm going to bid that work to replace and repair those buildings with an ad to drop a metal building in there as a replacement and tear all that other stuff down. And I think we can do that for less money and cover the same bases as we can nickel and diamond with broken 2x4s and metal, if that pleases you all. And again, this comes back scope to you guys on end of February to tell me that this is the option we want to do, okay? And then there's some time in there that I think the third-party folks will be verifying those insurance paybacks to make sure those dollars are clean, and we'll cover that. Then we got some infiltration on a field house weight room wall, just wind-blown pressures that blows through. It needs a coating to put on the wall, and it's good there. Then there's a greenhouse we'll bid. Again, your opinion, your choice, what you want to put back. You're going to get pennies for that thing that's there, and there's no way you're going to get paid for what that thing costs to put it back. It hasn't been used in several years. I'd probably be done with it. But that's your decision. So you'll see some of those on there that might hurt your feelings when the price of them is, and you'll know when you see it, it's not worth it. So those are the 5 things that are scoped on the high school that fall in line with that storm damage. 2 of those items is a March, get me done. There's no way ag is done in March. If we were to pull a metal building in 16 weeks of time, 14 weeks of time, best case, I could have a building sitting on that site ready to be erected. So those ag buildings will not happen in March. It's not even remotely possible. Fieldhouse weight room wall, yeah, 2 days and it's done. That's not a big deal. Greenhouse, your choice if you pull the trigger on that. Wait and see what the numbers are. Of all that value, you know, the Musco lights and those things, that's around $85,000. It's a problem. So insurance, your folks is working to pick those costs up. The other work, baseball, softball, not a lot of money, you know, small in value. Ag, I think, we were talking the other day, and I think that maybe there's a replacement. Insurance has kind of tentatively said, you know, we'll pay for that building. We can get it inside of 60,000. May not be $1 spent on there. All insurance put it back. So I think between now and then, when we get these numbers, that you'll know if there's money that comes out of the district's pocket or if insurance is going to cover it all. And that's the goal. The goal is to get it cut down and replacement back. You got storm damage, and if you may ask yourself, do we need to do all this? No, you don't have to. But at some point, you're going to have to fix that storm damage that's there. You got poles that are broke off on the baseball, or you got fences that are tore down on it. It's got to be put back into a safe environment. It just does. You don't have to do back with the ag buildings. You can tear them all down. It's y'all's choice. So I'm just going to simply give you back what you can do, the values and what it is, and then y'all can decide and make that choice of what those things are. But I think that there are some things there that are imperatively in need of repair now out of safety for what's hanging. I've talked enough. If y'all ask me any questions you want, or what it might be.
You're saying now and later.
Ma'am?
You're saying with some of these things it's now or later, and the later we do it, the more expensive it's going to be.
Yes, ma'am. In some
And
cases.
we're talking about safety here.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, are you done? This is more for Dr. Pickles. Has there been a conversation with Ms. Jenkins to ask her if like the large one, the metal building would work for her needs?
I have not discussed with her
Okay.
because at this moment, we just need to
Right.
get
Okay.
this.
Okay.
And I do know there was a conversation when I was talking to the Synergy rep.
Okay.
There was a conversation that there was more the replace.
Oh, yeah.
That they had said they were going to replace.
Okay.
But the later we do this, the more cost it's going to be.
So the question I have is just a technicality. Looking at the document online that you had put together, Will, I just want to confirm that we don't limit ourselves on that proposal because it says baseball field, softball field, and there's a little bit more than the field there per se. I just want to make sure, does that verbiage need to say complex versus field, just to make sure that we can include everything? I just don't want anything to get left off because the way we worded something.
So on the scope drawings, I'll take care of that on scope drawings.
Okay.
So on scope drawings, and then where at the bottom where you have the opportunity to waive irregularities and change, and that's one of the things I've kind of put a blanket on here, not stressing too far so that you don't have to
Okay.
get Tommy to work too hard for that.
Yeah, I know how the FEMA is, and I just don't want verbiage to hinder us.
Drawing wise, drawing wise, we have the bounds of it on a schedule plan. I'll have everything's on a drawing that shows all those parts and pieces. There are things on there that, reminded me of this is, there are things that I'm stretching the envelope on. Like, there was an old 10 by 10 ticket booth that 15 years ago, 12 years ago, I picked it up with my excavator and put it on my trailer and moved it to the back of baseball. Well, it was junk then, but guess what? Storm tore it down. So your insurance pays you for putting that back. I've got it on drawings. Now,
Is
y'all
the-
can choose not to have it and do
Is
it.
the awning on the concession stand at the softball field included in there? Because I believe that was.
Everything, there's
okay.
flashing, there's gutters, there's some stuff there I didn't go into great detail with you on today, but there's some things there like that, there's some fences that's kind of lean, they gotta be straightened. There's quite a bit of little picky stuff. there's picky stuff on baseball that, like the fence out front that separates the road from the aisle is laid over.
Right.
It's gotta be stood back up. So I've got all that shown on a scope sheet.
And I know Kaylee had to temporarily repair some fencing because of the cows and things like that. Or is that able to be included, or we've got to nix that because she had.
Anything you did prior to approval, my opinion, anything you had to do prior to approval of FEMA for damage, you're not getting reimbursement for. Not
Yeah.
saying it's all not
I
documented.
know, but I mean, it's a catch-22 for us because, I mean, she's stuck, she's got to repair it,
I
otherwise,
think you should have
animals are
repaired
getting
it.
out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I
that
agree.
should have been
And she
submitted
didn't replace
under,
the fencing, she temporarily just,
They could have submitted it.
mended it. So I'm just, if there's a possibility to include that in there, I think that we should, because the fence has not been replaced, it's just
Right.
been
Mended.
Band-Aided together.
There's probably quite a bit of that, I would think, and I think that those, Jeremy and Melinda have picked up quite a bit of stuff with that. That's out of my scope,
Right.
but
Okay.
I would say, yeah, there's more than a
Okay.
lot of that.
was her fencing identified
Tonight,
when they
working
came?
with You all, that any and
Well-
everything that you can do for us, that you do it.
Well,
The picky
unfortunately,
stuff and whatever, when, we don't even notice it, and you
Pick it up.
can pick it up.
So that's what I was saying that is on my drawing sheets. I'll have some negotiated changes within that scope
okay.
that I just don't know what they are yet. Won't even know until we dig some stuff up that's broken that, can't tell. You can see what is there, but there's some things that's hidden you don't know.
Yeah.
And that's why I say, just verbiage-wise, I just don't want to limit us to,
Yeah.
what we can and cannot include once you guys get out there. And to answer your question, Dr. Pickles, honestly, because we have not really been given any type of documentation or been, we've had no transparency with what the insurance company has or has not done. So none of us up here can answer that question because
Okay.
we've not seen any of that. I just know that in going out and, looking at it and talking to Kaylee, to make sure, because the thing is if we're going to do this, I want to make sure that we're going to do it all, and I don't want something getting left off that we could potentially be reimbursed for, especially something as serious as fencing, which is protecting the animals.
Correct.
So I just, I can't honestly answer that question because none of us up here have seen that documentation.
I can reach out to Melinda and ask her to send me
Yes, ma'am.
those documents. Any other questions for Will?
So you think, when the bids come in, you think that by spring break, we maybe?
I look at it like this, I asked, so the real first conversations we've had with real stuff was on like December 19th and 18th, me and Dr. Pickles had a conversation. I was off and she called me on the way back to Tallahassee, and that was the first time that we had talked about, this is what has to happen. This is
Correct.
when the coaches have already kind of worked through with Price to move games away and then to not, try to not give away all the revenue from those
Correct.
programs and stuff. I mean,
Correct.
it's a problem.
Yes.
So the date was told to me. We've been able to get it to spring break.
Right.
That's March. I don't even know what day that is. So I looked at it as, that's what you're telling me, that I gotta have it done in 2 weeks. Okay. So, I mean, can I do it? That's my goal. Baseball and softball's short of this Musco pole and box, which I gotta pull the trigger on pronto. And there's gonna be some things that I'm gonna come back and say, hey, in a week or so. So the long lead items on this sheet is one thing, and that's netting over the top.
Correct.
I've already had that conversation with Burbank, and there's some things that we might, either I'm gonna PO it and buy it and pull the trigger and pick it up later, or the district's going to. That's the things like, that particular one, there's no way I can call him and say, hey, you got a week, give me that net and put it up.
Right.
No. So I've already had that conversation with him now, and
Right.
he does a lot of these for me. So I'm leaning on that a little bit,
I got you.
if I'm honest.
Well, and we appreciate that because it's imperative that we try to get these kids out there to have these home games at home.
Sure.
Because the loss of revenue to either of them
Right.
is detrimental to what they can and cannot do out there, so.
Right.
After we approved Clemens Rutherford and Associates, CRA, at the December 9th meeting, I did start talking to our coaches and Coach Harris about having the two teams try to front end their games to all away. So their first half of their games, every softball, baseball game is actually away. So therefore, all of their games, because they have nowhere else they can play.
Right.
So we have until spring break then to try to get this resolved for them. Otherwise, then it is having to have them go back, adjust their schedules if they do not have fields to try to play on. And that's where it is. And that's the reason Coach Harris is here today, to even to try to address, because it's the loss of their sponsorships, their
revenues.
ticket revenue, and then also then having to travel a second time.
Right.
So it's huge revenue losses for those teams to then try to, and then if the other teams are willing to try to then host a second game, which most of them probably would be because they're not having to travel.
And they're
That's
making
revenue
money.
for
But
them.
then we are probably, those teams will come to us and ask us to help fund them for having to travel. And so that's something this board will also have to then agree, are we going to then front them the money to have to travel to away games? So that's the reason we have been trying to get this done and trying to ask this. And the coaches were willing to adjust the schedules. So I do appreciate them for doing that. And it's like, now we have to get this moving. So as Mr. Rutherford said, we talked on the 19th. We talked for an hour. He did some research trying to figure out the timing of how we had to do this. And I said, please let me know if we have to have a special meeting, which is the reason we're having to do this now. So I do recommend the
there's-
approval of the advertisement.
If there's no other questions, I would move to do the RFP bid for all of the facilities.
I second.
I've got a question. Dr. Pickle, I'd like to thank you for coming in today.
Yes, ma'am.
Who else received an invitation to bid?
This is going
No,
out to bid.
This is just
Oh,
the
this is just going
advertisement.
out
This
to
is
bid.
just
So that we
the
can put it out.
advertisement.
Okay, I got
So
you.
it's, once it hits the papers on Wednesday,
Then
he'll
we
have
get
it,
the
then the
bids.
bids will
Okay.
come in.
Whoever wants to bid that can qualify with insurance and can post PMP bonds. It's open. So, that's whoever wants to.
Okay, we had a first and a second on the table.
All right, we have a motion to accept the invitation to bid RFP. Motion made by Ms. Knight, second by Ms. Thompson. Any more discussion? If not, all approve? 5-0.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
And thank you for coming in today on this rainy day.